All right, so this is like the basic before you do anything else, how to clean up a vocal, just like the first three maybe things that you can do. Super, super simple, but things that you shouldn't neglect before you go on to layering, processing, like all kinds of other stuff, but the basics, getting the basics right,
Lay to rest.
It's a little vocal from an artist I worked with before, Reeves, one of my previous releases, Helpless.
Lay to rest before I break.
So yeah, the three kind of tips I'd give you for vocals are EQing, volume automation or volume chopping, and compression as well. So these are like things that will like always work well on vocals. So the first thing that we can do is we can look at EQing. So if you just have a look at the vocal on span, for example, first.
Lay to rest.
You can see where the fundamental really is.
Lay to rest.
Starts around here, 269 or so.
Lay to.
And all that stuff below is rumble in the recording. It doesn't need to be in there. So it's just going to cause issues in the rest of the track. So the first thing is to remove the rumble, right?
Lay to.
So we can take everything out. As long as we don't end up taking out any of the fundamental, we can go a bit lower,
Lay to rest before I break.
But that then gets rid of all of the rumble that doesn't need to be there. So that's the first thing, Then if you keep looking on the EQ,
Lay to rest.
you can now look for gaps in the spectrum, because naturally, like, a vocal isn't going to fill out the whole range like evenly. It's going to be very, as you see here, very choppy.
Lay to rest.
But I can detect, especially here, this sort of area,
Lay to rest.
there's like some obvious kind of gaps where the frequency range doesn't really get filled out very nicely in this area. And we always want fullness from a vocal, so we can bring up basically areas where there's information is a bit lower.
Lay to rest.
And then you can sort of check by the graph and then do the rest by ear, So we can bring up sort of a point in that sort of area. It was sort of around 1 to 3K,
Lay to rest before I break. I don't know how much more I.
But yeah, it really, like, you want to find a point where it naturally increases it enhances the sound quality, and it feels like the singing has become more pronounced, So around 2.5K here is perfect.
Lay to rest before I break.
So that's like a great way to get a bit of extra fullness from the vocal,
Lay to rest.
So you've already done like just two EQ kind of adjustments, one for the rumble and one for getting a bit more fullness, like really nice and easy, and quick and easy to do. That's the first thing, right?
Lay to rest.
Then what you want to do generally is compress, because the variation in volume is going to be quite different. You can use other plugins like vocal riders and things like that, but I find just a bit of compression is pretty good. So attack on 0, so it sort of starts straight away. Ratio on 2, so it's nice and reactive. And then
Lay to rest.
we can just already look here. How much do you sort of want to compress it by?
Lay to rest.
And the goal is just to create more of an even volume spread across the whole vocal line.
Lay to rest before I break. I don't know.
So if you pick something like that, then you could compare it. Like I can show you here. If I would bounce it out, it's going to be subtle, but it's going to be slightly more even now. It won't be completely even, and that's okay. But you can see, hopefully, if you notice the difference in the sort of the high parts and the low parts, they're not as extreme anymore. So it's still very dynamic, but it's been slightly reined in. Like the general volume differences are not as extreme. So that's one thing you can do then. And then another thing you can do, just a third little thing.
Lay to rest.
This is more if you just have to. This vocal's kind of alright, you don't really need to, but if there's certain words or parts where it's just too quiet, I just tend to chop the file and just bring it up, or just gain it up on the sort of file here itself, So
Lay to rest.
that sort of rest part was a bit quiet, so I could bring that up a bit.
Lay to rest before I.
Maybe the before, maybe you might think that one's a little bit quiet. So you could bring that one up a tiny bit as well here, like that.
Lay to rest before I break. I don't.
And that I is kind of, it's kind of quite loud, you know. You could maybe take that down a little notch. So this is
I don't know how much more I can take.
so that's where, when the compressor like hasn't quite done enough, because the compression is more of a subtle control. But if there's certain words or like syllables or things that are just like really, really too quiet or really, really too loud, then you can just sort of gain them manually. So those are like the three like basic things I'll do for cleaning up a vocal before I start using it, you know? So EQing out rumble, checking if there's any areas that are nice to boost as well, like mid-range, or for example, something like that. Or the treble, kind of areas where the vocalist naturally has frequencies that are sort of lower than the rest, bringing those up. And then, yeah, compressing for a bit more of a general volume across the whole thing, and doing some little extra special volume treatment on specific little tiny bits of audio that need it. And those are like the first things I would do with the vocal to get it cleaned up like nicely, really simply, without using plugins and things that will change the quality. All of these things will retain the high sound quality. You know, it's not like you're using special vocal plugins or DSs or over stereoing stuff at this point. You know, you're not like ruining the main quality of the vocal with this kind of stuff. So you can always do that. You can always do those three things to like clean it up and make it sound a bit more ready to be used, and it's going to just be a bit nicer, you know. So really, really easy, nice little tip, but things that people often neglect at the beginning stage of working with vocals, you know. So there we go, there you have it. Thank you very much for watching. Little mini tip, hope you enjoyed it. Leave a comment and a like and a share down below. And thanks for supporting me, and subscribe if you're new, and check out the links in my video description as well for preset packs, my Patreon, one-on-one lessons, and mixing and mastering work. All right, that's it for me today. More from me very soon. Much love.